actually put the engine screen rect. It's very important. Engine.screen. Whoop. Alright, so there it is. Now, what happens on these is for each GUI that has an element or labels or anything else, if they're visible, it actually sets it up where it actually loads it, whatnot. Right now, all we want to do is just draw it. You know, it's visible. Let's draw it. We are also removing our old print state because we don't need that either. I'm pretty much going to go ahead and all the old GUI elements are now being removed. Obviously, I'm kind of wasting memory with this. We'll fix that later. Alright, so let's quickly run it, and you'll actually get to see what we just changed. Not very much, obviously, but it's going to make a nice difference. Plus, it's always good to test in little chunks. That way, if you have errors like I just got, you can fix them. I bet you 10 to 1 I put the wrong file name. I misspelled it totally. I bet you anything. That's exactly what happened, and that's why it's yelling at me. So let's go back down to the title. Title load here. I put it as new overlay.png. I bet you 10 to 1 that's not the actual name. It's probably like overlay new. And guess what? It is overlay new. I knew it. See, basic stuff like that. So we'll just fix that. As you can see, there's still not a lot of error handling. But thankfully I knew exactly what was wrong, so we fixed it. Load it up here. Yay, no crash this time. Woot woot! Hooray for debugging. So we'll go ahead and go into our new game. And ta-da! There is the brand new overlay. Very simple change, very different little thing, but now we actually have at least a little order to it. We have an idea of where things are, and as you can see, the actual things we added in Photoshop actually helps with the design and helps with us focusing on what we're doing, basically. You can also see I actually extended the bottom portion here to kind of not be so close to the edge of the map. So this is great. Now that we actually have our overlay and our GUI in place, the basic GUI in place now, we can actually start coding and adding the other elements that we want to add. In this case, we want to add a location information up here, which basically just displays where we're at. Not this information, but you know, actual region. Like if you're in a city or whatever, that's basically what goes up here. Up here would be an actual compass, northwest, east, southwest. So wherever we're moving, it's going to show that we're going in that direction, or we're pointed in that direction. And then, of course, last but not least, over here is an actual menu button that we'll be adding for the next GUI that we'll do. So very, very simple stuff. So that way we don't have to keep hitting escape anymore. So there you go, the very basic overlay. And the power of this, and I'm going to take a moment to explain this to you guys because I know you're dying to know how this works. It's actually really neat. It's basically how I built the class. Dang thing ended on me again. I have to watch that. Basically what we have here is an actual class for the GUIs that handle it, which I call CGUI, obviously. It's basically a structure with structures inside of it. And it's really neat because it allows me to hold different elements. So in this case, if we actually go to the main structure of the actual GUI element, right here, this is the actual main GUI. This is the one that you have set up. So when I went cGUI.GUI, this is what I was accessing. As you can see here by new, this is pretty much what we did when we added that new GUI. We put in the name, we put in the background information, we put the size and height, and then it goes ahead and sets all the basic defaults for that, basically. Now, all these commands is for different stuff for elements and labels, because I found out I couldn't get to them directly. Also, there's some very useful functions that I added here in order to find things. Obviously, we have an add element, which adds new elements, which is another structure an element structure. This actually adds it. And what's really, really cool and how it works is it puts it into an array list. And the array list is what actually holds it. It does the same thing for labels. So for that, in order for us to find them, we actually have them done by IDs. So you actually put in an ID, which is any number, 0, 1, 100, 300, whatever. And then when we need to find a specific ID, a specific element, we can actually do it by its ID number, and same with label, and it will return that information. It's really neat. I'm very proud of it. It's the first real class I have built by myself. Whereas, most of these other classes was actually partly in the book and helped by the book. This class I actually wrote by myself. So what we will do next, like I said, is actually start adding some GUI elements. Obviously we're going to have a label, at least one label, probably 2, maybe even 3. It depends on how we decide to do the compass. We could do the compass as a basic little image or background or whatever, and then add a text over it, or we could actually do it as a standard sprite sheet, a real sprite sheet, and actually have it change images. Honestly, I think doing it as a sprite sheet is easier, so we'll probably do the compass as an actual element, just an element, GUI element that changes depending on what direction you're pointing. The actual location information is pretty simple. It should be just text, and then the actual menu button is going to be a combination of the two. It's going to actually have a background for use for a button, and also when you push it, and then we'll actually have text or a label for the text for it as well. I think that will work best. That's what I have on my whiteboard, so that's the way we'll go. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and add a label for our location information. So we will go ahead and add that. Add label. We want this to be 0 because it is the first label element, and we like to index 0, so we're going to go ahead and start as 0. Actual text is going to be interesting because it will change, and it can change, but for the default text we're just going to set it up GUI location info. Since it will have its own separate tune, it will be changed. Right now it doesn't matter. This is just temporary and a basic stuff to initialize it with some sort of string. I obviously could have made it just empty string as well. Now we actually come to where its position. Where is it going to be on the screen? Where do you want me to draw it? Basically is what I want. So we're going to do a new point for our position, and now we get the actual XY coordinates. We are running at 800 by 600 resolution for our game right now. The location is actually pretty easy because it starts at the upper right hand corner. So we will actually have, probably, I'm going to bring it down from the screen a little bit, and we'll go ahead and say 10 as our X. Or no, X is vertical, sorry, or horizontal. Wow, just blew my mind. Yeah, 10. As for Y, we will also do 10. Just make it kind of centered, kind of right there, and not right at the very edge, but as close as possible. Next we have the actual color. What color will it be? Well, we have a green background behind it right now, so we'll go ahead and make it a simple aqua. That's fine. Shadow will actually give it a shadow behind it, and since it's a location and information, I think that's kind of a good idea. So we'll go ahead and put that to true. Sorry. Font type is what font we have. We only have 2 types of fonts available to us now, and these are done by ID basically. So it's 0 or 1. 0 being the small font, 1 being the big font. So we'll do small font because we don't want it huge. And visible is obvious, whether or not it's drawn, whether or not you see it, stuff like that. And we want it visible, so we'll go ahead and do true. So there that is. Let's save that. Alright, so we have all that set up now. That's going to set up our label. Very, very simple, not too difficult. Obviously it's not going to update it or do anything yet, but at least we have it set up. We're going to go ahead and set up our menu label as well. Might as well, since we're here. That one will never change anyway, so it actually makes sense. Simple little menu here, new point. Now this is where it gets a little complicated, because now we got to actually figure out where it's going to be at. So we know it's going to be near the edge of the screen on the right. So, and it's 800 by 600. So we'll go ahead and say position it at, how about 725? That sounds good to me. And it will also have this about 10 down. Its color is going to be a goldish, should be, mainly because of, it's a mini thing, and it'll also go with the button a bit more that way. We actually do want a shadow. We want it to be a small font, and of course we want it visible. So there is the overlay. Now these won't be drawn yet because we need to actually go back and put that in.